On defeating Lima Senior for the state championship, Mike was quoted in a paper saying, "I think Lima saw the eye of the tiger and realized we were going to just keep coming at him." Lima coach Paul Whitney saw the same thing. In the same article, he noted that it's never over. Not against Lakota, they never give up. This speaks volumes about Mike Mueller, the way he coached his teams and the attitude he takes towards life. You don't quit, you don't give up, you approach everything in life with passion. Mike, like any other coach, has been no stranger to ups and downs of life, but it is his philosophy of life that causes so many to have so much respect for him. He noted in 1992, "Too often people want life to be all good, and it's not. It's through struggles that people get closer." It's this philosophy and view of life that allowed him to revive the basketball program at Lakota. It was the same passion he brought to teaching history and earned him the esteem of his peers in the social studies department. He was just as serious about teaching history as he was about coaching. Mike said many times his entire day involved teaching. Teaching in a classroom all day, teaching on the gym floor in the afternoon and evenings, but always teaching. Our next inductee is Mike Mueller, Lakota and Lakota West basketball and tennis coach. Mike guided Lakota to 2 appearances and 3 wins in a state basketball tournament Final Four. His 1992 team won the Ohio Division I championship, and his 1991 team was runner-up. Following the 1991 season, he was selected by the Associated Press as the Ohio Division I Boys Basketball Coach of the Year. Mueller coached high school basketball for 36 seasons, the last 22 in the Lakota School District, 11 at Lakota and 11 at Lakota West. In 22 years in the Lakota District, his teams were credited with 316 wins. He won 63% of the games. He also won 40 Ohio tournament games. All of these marks are the highest attained by any of the 11 boys basketball coaches in the district's history, and in the case of tournament wins, represents well over half of all the tournament wins in the 53 years of history with the Lakota District. His teams also earned 3 GMC Conference Championships, 3 District Championships, and 3 Regional Championships. No other Lakota boys basketball team has yet matched or exceeded any of these totals. In the 11 years Mueller coached Lakota West, after the district split into 2 schools, the Firebirds never suffered a losing season. And in 2002, 2003, they attained the #1 ranking in Cincinnati and a final ranking of #8 among Ohio Division I schools. His overall basketball coaching win total of 572 is currently the 14th highest in the Ohio High School Athletic Association record book. This ranking is from among thousands of coaches who have ever coached in Ohio. While best remembered for basketball, Mueller also had outstanding success in over 21 seasons as the boys tennis coach, first at Lakota and then at Lakota West. He coached his team to 199 dual match wins, the most by far of any coach in the district's history. Coach Mueller's previous honors have included induction into the Butler County Sports Hall of Fame and the Greater Cincinnati Basketball Hall of Fame. As a retired educator, Mike enjoys spending time with his family and giving back to the community. Please welcome Mike Mueller.
I'd like to start out by introducing the people at my table. And I'll start out by introducing my brother Steve and his wife Jeannie. I want to read you the note my brother wrote me. He says, "Mike, During your talk, keep in mind you are not dying of cancer. So keep it short and sweet. That's my brother. Next to him is my lovely wife, Jackie. We just recently celebrated our 25th anniversary. When I came in 1986, we were both single parents. And my brother Steve was one of the main reasons I came to this area. And he called me and he said, you know, Lakota needs a coach. And you need to let Jeannie and I and Mom and Dad help you raise Scott and Jeff. And then I met Jackie in year 2, and we're living happily ever after. Next is Mike Gerardo. And Mike was my last tennis captain. And like many of my athletes, and I can't thank all of them, I can't speak about all of them, but Mike is one of many that I feel this way about. I say to him often, you know, you don't need another dad. He has a wonderful dad, but I can't help loving you like a son. Then one of my new best buddies is Dave Matting at the end. He's my tennis buddy. We're going to be playing tennis tomorrow morning at 7:30. We're going to play singles for an hour, and then we're going to play doubles for a couple hours with a couple of 30-year-olds. And the last time we played, we beat them 6-3, 6-1. My son Jeff is next. Jeff graduated in '94, was first team all GMC. And again, Jeff and Scott are the 2 best things I ever did. And the 3 best things they ever did are these 6 beautiful grandchildren they've given me. Then I have Kim and Scott Mueller. I think it's true, and I don't know, but I talked to Gene Hutzelman. I think Gene and Dan Hutzelman and Scott and Mike now are the only father-sons in the Hall of Fame, and what a truly great honor it is. And I had the honor of coaching Gene's son, Dan. And again, he didn't need another dad either, but I love Dan. Dan was an interesting one. Let me tell you a quick story. Stu said in his letter to me, he said, you know, you can take 5 to 7 minutes. Andy Dunn and his wife is here. And Andy once introduced me and he said, yeah, Coach, the only person I know who takes 10 minutes to say hello. But Dan once said to me, he says, Coach, you got to yell at us more. And believe it or not, I didn't yell much, very little. I used to say to him, I have to speak loudly to be heard. In a gym with 20 balls bouncing or in a gym with thousands and thousands of screaming people that we want there. But I didn't yell much. Dan would say to me, Coach, you got to yell at us more. And I said, Dan, you know what? If I have to yell at you to get the best out of you, you're not the kind of young man I want on my team. And so as Mike mentioned, I believed early on that the best teachers make the best coaches. And so I tried to be a teacher, and a good one, all day in my history class. And then I just went to the basketball court or the tennis court after school and tried to continue that. Next, I would like to say thank you to, first of all, this community. I love this community. I moved into this community when I first came. And I've lived here ever since, and I still do, and I love the Lakota community. And if I have contributed anything to it over the years, it's just trying to give back to the community that has given me so much. But I would like to thank the leaders of the Lakota School District that made everything I did possible. I'm going to start at the top with Superintendent Tom Hayden. Now, any of you old enough to remember the old radio show, Paul Harvey? The rest of the story? Well, let me tell you something about Mr. Hayden. Wonderful guy, and he took a chance on this skinny old, crooked-nosed guy from Illinois. But Dr. Hayden, I'm not the best coach in the family. My wife Jackie is. Evidence of that. Years ago, we had a faculty musical every year. My wife would come home as choreographer of Guys and Dolls, and she'd say, oh, I got to teach Tom Hayden how to dance. And I went to that musical, and Tom Hayden danced. And he was pretty good. So the best coach in the family is right over here. I'd also like to thank Principal Craig Ullery. Craig Ullery isn't here tonight. He's enjoying retirement in the Phoenix area, watching the Red spring training, but I speak with him on the phone often. And Craig was my last principal at Lakota High School and my first principal at Lakota West High School. Sometimes people ask me, they say, when the school split, the existing coaches got their choice. Why did you go to Lakota West? 2 reasons. Number 1, Craig Ullery. Number 2, Andy Dunn and Josh Romero were sophomores and lived on the west side of town. But Craig is a wonderful guy. I'll give you a quick Craig Ullery rest of the story. He told me about this. He said, you know, not everybody likes you. I knew that. He said, I got a parent meeting, or I had a parent meeting yesterday. And he said, I told them when they came in, you got 15 minutes, and Mike Mueller's my coach when this meeting starts, and Mike Mueller's going to be my coach when this meeting ends. And he said, the parent looked at me and said, then it's a waste of time, and walked away. That's the kind of guy Craig Ullery was. And then I'd like to thank Athletic Director Stu Eversole. Stu was the athletic director for many years, and he also took a chance on this guy. And again, I didn't always make life easy for Stu Eversole. We were state champions in 1992, and we beat Lima Senior in overtime. It was a great game, down 21 actually, with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. All I said to the kids was, don't look at the scoreboard. Just play every possession on both ends of the floor to the best of your ability. I'll tell you when you can look at the scoreboard. We looked at the scoreboard, down 3 in the final seconds of regulations, and Dr. Brad Evans made that 3 to tie it, and we won it in overtime. And Ken's younger brother, Keith, was our All-Stater, and so much of a big part of that, along with Scott and so many others. But anyway, the next year, Lima is in the GMC. The next year we go to Lima. I wasn't real popular in Lima, Ohio. And there are a couple of guys that just wore me out all night. And if you know the locker room and the gym in Lima, to get to the visitors' locker room, you go through the middle of the home stands. Right through the middle. So as we come out, they're yelling and screaming and throwing things at us. Well, we won that game on a last-second shot and got to go through the home stands. Well, Monday morning, Stu calls me and he says, Mike, the people from Lima called. Did you really flip them off on the way out that night? I said, no, Stu, I showed them my ring. So I didn't always make life easy for Stu. But I mean it. I showed him my ring. That was the finger I used. This one. I have also believed as a teacher, and I did plan before even my brother's note to mention, in my opinion, the greatest athletic speech ever given was Jimmy Valvano. And he told people that every day you should laugh, and you should cry, and you should think. Well, I hope I can help you laugh a little tonight. I may be the only one that cries. And I hope I can get you to think. Tom Hayden and Stu Eversole heard this when I interviewed in 1986. They said, Mike, what's your philosophy of coaching? I said, well, I was ready for that. I said, well, I have a philosophy of life, and here's how it goes. When you have good people doing things right, success is just a matter of time. They told me that Lakota had only had 4 or 5 winning records since 1959, from 1959 to 1986, and the gold standard was Kenny Greger's team. The gold standard, and I heard a lot about Ken Greger and Jeff Prather and that group, but they'd only had 4 or 5 winning seasons in almost over 25 years of school existence. But I told them, I said, in my last job in Illinois, we were in the state championship game in year 5. And that was my goal. And I said, when you have good people doing things right, success is just a matter of time. And there are so many good people in this community. Apples don't fall far from trees. Many of them are here tonight. The athletes, the parents. And good people value faith, family, and education above all else. I used to tell my athletes, don't you dare ever put basketball or tennis more than fourth in your life. Faith, family, and education. I also didn't do Stu any favors. We said a pregame prayer in a public school every year I coached, every game I coached. Stu would say to me, Mike, don't make a big deal of it. We know you do it, just don't make a big deal of it. I didn't till tonight. And I'll share with you when I close what that prayer was. We couldn't ask God to help us win. What if the other team was asking? You can't put God on a spot like that. But we did. I had so many good people. And I wasn't always easy on them. I demanded them to do things right. And there were consequences if they didn't. And there were times I didn't take the 12 best athletes on my team. Some of the 12 best athletes were walking the halls. They weren't good people. They weren't willing to do things right. But we did just fine with good people doing things right. And then I remember before year 4, with J.B. Reefsnyder, who would go on and play in a national championship game at Syracuse in 1996. And Steve Belter, who would go to Richmond and later Ohio State. And Keith Greger, who would captain 3 UC teams. And my son Scott, and so many others. We were in the state championship game and lost to Cleveland St. Joe's. But one of the highlights of my career after losing, we stood at half court and we grabbed hands and we raised them to our fans to say thank you. Because I was aware that we may never get back there. I certainly didn't know we'd be back the next year. And I've had people tell me that they were at the state championship game in 91 when we lost, and 92 when we won. And they were more positively impacted by our loss. Isn't that interesting? But those were good people doing things right. And it was the right thing to do to salute our fans that night, even in defeat. So, I want to thank you for this honor. I want to thank you. I will say this. As Mike mentioned, this is my 3rd Hall of Fame. But this is the best one. And this is the one that made the other 2 possible. So I want to thank you so much for that. And I'll close with our pregame prayer. And it evolved over years. I had input from players, parents. Mike Wheatley's here. He was my spiritual compass for many, many years as my pastor. But it went like this. Lord, we're not going to ask you for anything special tonight. We only ask for courage to use the skills and abilities you've given each and every one of us. Help us to remember that the true value of athletics, what we do and why we do it, is to learn to give of ourselves. Give everything we have, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And then, Lord, help us to accept the outcome as men. That was it. Believe it or not, I never talked about winning. Never. I talked about doing our best. John Wooden once said, giving all, it seems to me, is not too far from victory. Victory, winning games, was a byproduct of just being good people, doing things right, and giving your all. Courageously, having the courage. And so tonight I want to thank you and thank this community. God bless you all for letting me be me for so long.
Mike, I've got your coin up here too. On behalf of the families, the teammates, the coaches, and the fans that are here tonight, thank you to all of our newest Hall of Fame members. Tonight has been a real treat, just as it was years ago when you were on your respective fields of competition. As we close, we would encourage you not to rush off. Please stay, take a minute, talk, and share with all of our guests. And now, before they ride off into the sunset, can we please give this group